The first thing I registered was pain, a deep, throbbing ache that radiated from my ribs and spine. The second was the smell, antiseptic but wrong somehow, like lemons mixed with copper. My eyelids felt like they weighed 1,000 pounds, but I forced them open anyway. Two faces hovered above me, and my breath caught in my throat. They weren't human. The older one, the mother, I somehow knew instinctively, had skin the color of deep sapphire, smooth and luminescent as if lit from within. Her eyes were large and almond-shaped, a brilliant amber that seemed to see straight through me. Delicate ridges ran along her temples and disappeared into her hairline, where silver-white hair cascaded down her shoulders like starlight. She wore something that resembled a medical uniform, fitted and elegant, in shades of pearl and gray. Beside her stood a younger version of herself, the daughter. Her skin was a lighter blue, almost periwinkle, and her hair was the same silver-white but shorter, falling just past her shoulders. Her amber eyes were wider, more curious, less guarded than her mother's. She couldn't have been more than the alien equivalent of a teenager. "He's awake," the daughter said, her voice melodic and surprisingly gentle. The words came out in perfect English, though her lips didn't quite match the sounds. Some kind of translation technology, I realized dimly. "Step back, Lyria," the mother said, her tone professional but warm. "Give him space." I tried to sit up, but the mother's hand, 4 slender fingers instead of 5, pressed gently against my shoulder. "Don't move yet. You were badly injured when we found you. The medical pod has accelerated your healing, but you're still fragile." "Where?" My voice came out as a croak. "Where am I?" "On our ship," Lyria said, leaning in despite her mother's warning. "The whisper of dawn. We're medical transporters. We provide aid to remote colonies in the outer reach." The outer reach. The words meant nothing to me, but they confirmed what I already knew. I wasn't on Earth anymore. Hell, I wasn't even sure I was in the same solar system. Memory came flooding back in fragments, the transport ship, the asteroid field, alarms blaring, the hull breaching, everyone scrambling for escape pods, and then nothing, blackness. "How long?" I asked. The mother, whose name I still didn't know, exchanged a glance with her daughter. "We found you 3 days ago. Your escape pod was drifting near the Helios belt. You were in cryostasis, but your pod was damaged. Life support was failing." 3 days, and before that, who knows how long I'd been drifting. "The others?" I asked, though I already knew the answer from their expressions. The mother's amber eyes softened with something that looked like genuine sympathy. "We searched. I'm sorry. Your pod was the only one we detected." The weight of those words settled over me like a shroud. Captain Reeves, Dr. Chen, young Martinez who'd just gotten engaged, all gone, and here I was alive by sheer cosmic chance, rescued by aliens who had no reason to help me. "Thank you," I managed, my voice thick, "for saving me." "Of course," the mother said, as if there had never been any other option. "I'm Dr. Selene Velmora, Chief Medical Officer. This is my daughter, Lyria." "Marcus," I said. "Marcus Webb, I am a xenobotanist, was headed to the Kepler station for research." "A plant scientist," Lyria said, her eyes lighting up with interest. "We studied Earth biology in my xenobiology courses. Your planet has such diverse ecosystems." Despite everything, the pain, the loss, the sheer impossibility of my situation, I felt a small smile tug at my lips. "You study Earth species. The university requires all medical students to study species from at least 5 different planetary origins," Selene explained, running a scanner over my chest. The device hummed softly, projecting holographic data that I couldn't begin to interpret. Earth is particularly interesting because of your species' adaptability and resilience. That's a diplomatic way of saying we're stubborn and hard to kill, I said. Lyria laughed, a sound like wind chimes. My professor said that humans have an unusual capacity for survival against statistical probability. She called it the human factor. Your professor sounds wise, I said, then winced as a sharp pain lanced through my side. Seleni's expression turned serious. You have 3 partially healed ribs and significant tissue damage to your lower back. The medical pod repaired the critical damage, but you'll need another 2 sessions to fully recover. And rest, lots of rest. How long until we reach? Somewhere, a station, a planet. Another exchanged glance between mother and daughter. That's complicated, Selene said carefully. We're currently 17 days from the nearest inhabited station, Outpost Meridian. However, our ship is small, designed for a crew of 4. We're not equipped for long-term passengers, and I'm human, I finished. Different biology, different nutritional needs. We've been synthesizing compatible nutrients based on your biological scans, Lyria said quickly. The food won't taste like what you're used to, but it should sustain you. Should, not exactly reassuring. Selene must have seen something in my expression because she pulled up a chair, or what passed for one in their species' design, and sat down beside the medical bed. Marcus, I want to be honest with you. Your situation is difficult. You're far from any human settlement on a ship with limited resources. But we will get you to Outpost Meridian safely. I give you my word. There was something in the way she said it, a gravity, a weight of personal honor that made me believe her. Thank you, I said again, because what else could I say? Over the next few days, I began to understand the rhythm of life aboard the Whisper of Dawn. The ship was indeed small, more of an advanced medical shuttle than a proper starship. Besides Selene and Lyria, there were 2 other crew members. Kale, a taciturn pilot who looked like he was carved from granite and had skin the color of desert sand, and Myra, a cheerful engineer with bioluminescent patterns along her arms that shifted colors with her mood. But it was Selene and Lyria who I spent the most time with. Selene because she was my doctor, conducting daily examinations and treatments in the medical bay. Lyria because she was curious, endlessly so, and seemed to view me as a living biology lesson. Do all humans have hair on their faces? Lyria asked one afternoon, watching with fascination as I attempted to shave using a device that was definitely not designed for human faces. Most human males can grow it, yeah, I said, wincing as I nicked my chin. Why don't your people? We have hair only on our heads and a few ceremonial patterns on our backs, she explained. Facial hair seems so impractical. It is, I admitted, but some humans like it, cultural thing. Lyria, stop interrogating our patient, Selene called from across the medical bay where she was organizing supplies, but there was amusement in her voice. I'm not interrogating, I'm learning, Lyria protested. It's fine, I said, dabbing at the small cut. Better than sitting here staring at the ceiling. And it was true. Lyria's questions, however odd, were a welcome distraction from the darker thoughts that crept in during quiet moments. Thoughts about the transport ship, about everyone I'd lost, about the fact that I was utterly, completely alone, farther from Earth than any human had any right to be. Selene seemed to sense these darker moods. She had a way of appearing when they hit hardest, not with platitudes or false cheer, but with quiet company. Sometimes she'd work silently at her station while I stared out the viewport at the endless stars. Sometimes she'd tell me about her people, the Velian species, and their culture that valued healing above all else. "We believe that to mend a body is sacred work," she said one evening. "But to mend a spirit, that's the highest calling." "And which are you doing with me?" I asked. She smiled, a gesture I'd learned to recognize despite the subtle differences in our expressions. "Both, I hope." By the 8th day, I was strong enough to move around the ship with minimal pain. Selene had cleared me for light activity, which mostly meant I could walk to the common area without feeling like my ribs were going to shatter. I found Lyria there, staring intently at a holographic display showing various plant species. "Studying?" I asked. She jumped slightly, then smiled sheepishly. "Trying to. I have exams when we return to the university. Botany is not my strongest subject. Mind if I take a look?" Her eyes lit up. "Would you? I'm stuck on the reproductive cycles of andromedon moss varieties." I settled into the chair beside her, and for the next hour we discussed plant biology. It was surreal, explaining pollination strategies to an alien teenager on a spaceship somewhere in the outer reach. But it was also the most normal I'd felt since waking up. "You're a good teacher," Lyria said when we finished. "Patient. You're a good student, curious." "Mother says my curiosity will either make me a brilliant doctor or get me killed," she said with a laugh. "Hopefully the first one." She sobered slightly. "Marcus, can I ask you something about Earth?" "Sure. Is it true that humans live on a planet where almost everything is trying to kill them? Predators, diseases, natural disasters?" I blinked. "Where did you hear that?" "My xenobiology textbook. It described Earth as a high-pressure evolution environment." I had to laugh. "I mean, yeah, I guess. We have our share of dangers, but we also have beauty. Forests and oceans and mountains, flowers that bloom in the spring, birds that sing at dawn." Her expression turned wistful. "I'd like to see it someday, Earth. Maybe you will. Mother says the journey is too long and expensive, but maybe after I finish medical school." She trailed off, then brightened. "You could tell me about it, your favorite places on Earth." So I did. I told her about the redwood forests of California, where trees grew so tall they seemed to touch the sky. About the northern lights dancing over Iceland. About the cherry blossoms in Japan that turned whole cities pink for a few precious weeks each spring. Selene found us there hours later, still talking. She stood in the doorway for a moment, just watching, and I caught something in her expression, something soft and sad and complicated. "Come, Lyria," she said gently. "Marcus needs his rest, and you have studying to do." Lyria groaned but obeyed, gathering her holographic materials. After she left, Selene approached me. "Thank you," she said quietly. "For what?" "For talking with her, for seeing her as more than just an alien. She's been isolated in some ways. Other students at the university don't always understand her enthusiasm." "She reminds me of myself at that age," I said. "Curious about everything, wanting to understand the universe." Selene sat down in the chair Lyria had vacated. She struggled with the expectations placed on her. Being the daughter of the chief medical officer, there's pressure to excel, to be perfect. "She seems pretty excellent to me." "She is," Selene said with unmistakable pride. "But she doesn't always see it in herself." We sat in comfortable silence for a moment. "Can I ask you something?" I said. "Of course." "Why did you really stop to pick up my pod?" "You could have just reported the coordinates to the authorities, kept to your schedule." Selene's amber eyes met mine steadily. Because leaving you would have been a slow death sentence, and I am a healer. It's not in my nature to pass by suffering when I have the ability to prevent it. Even for a stranger, an alien? Especially for a stranger, she said. That's when compassion matters most. The remaining days passed in a strange, peaceful rhythm. My body healed. I helped Lyria study. I learned Velian words and customs. I shared meals, strange, synthesized nutrient paste that somehow Myra managed to make almost palatable with the crew. And I talked with Selene. Long conversations about medicine and philosophy, about loss and hope, about the strange twists of fate that bring people together. On the final night before we reached Outpost Meridian, I found myself unable to sleep. I wandered to the observation deck and found Selene already there, staring out at the stars. "Thinking about tomorrow?" she asked without turning. "Yeah," I admitted. "Strange as it sounds, I'm going to miss this ship, miss you and Lyria." She turned to me then. "It's not strange at all. You've been through trauma. We've been your anchors." "You've been more than that," I said. "You saved my life, and then you gave me a reason to keep living." Something shifted in her expression, a vulnerability I hadn't seen before. "Marcus, when we found you, you were dying, but more than that, you were alone. And I know what that feels like." "Selene, Lyria's father died 5 years ago," she said quietly. "Medical emergency. I was there and I couldn't save him. For a long time I carried that guilt, that failure, and Lyria and we were alone." I reached out, hesitated, then gently took her hand, 4 fingers wrapped around my 5. "But we healed," she continued, "together and helping you heal." It reminded me that we have the power to save each other, even when we're strangers. Maybe especially then. "Thank you," I said, "for everything." She smiled, and in the starlight she was beautiful in a way that transcended species. "Outpost Meridian will help you get home, Marcus, but know that you have friends now in the outer reach. If you ever need us, we'll be here." I'll remember that. When we docked at Outpost Meridian the next day, saying goodbye was harder than I'd expected. Lyria hugged me, an awkward, cross-species embrace that somehow felt perfect. Selene held my hands one more time, amber eyes warm with something I didn't have a name for. As I watched the whisper of dawn depart from the station's observation deck, I realized something. I'd lost my crew, my ship, my mission. But I'd gained something too. A reminder that compassion exists everywhere in the universe. That family isn't always blood. And that sometimes, when you open your eyes, the strangers beside you become the people who save you in every way that matters.